Iskandini Kipanda Acharya Shri Prabhupada ki, Kuti Vaishnava Bindi ki, Namacharya Shri Haridhara Thakur ki, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gauratanandi, all glory to the Samadhi, all glory to the Samadhi, all glory to the Samadhi, all glory to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. The other book is in the room there. I forgot to bring it back in. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from First Canto, 11th chapter, text number 38. Etad Ishanam Ishasya.
Etad Ishanam Ishasya.
Prakritisto Pitad Gunai.
Prakritisto Pitad Gunai.
Nayujate Sadat Mastaye.
Nayujate Sadat Mastaye.
Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya.
Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya.
Etad Ishanam Ishasya.
Etad Ishanam Ishasya.
Prakritisto Pitad Gunai.
Prakritisto Pitad Gunai.
Nayujate Sadat Mastaye.
Nayujate Sadat Mastaye.
Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya.
Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya.
Etadishanam Ishasya. Prakritisto Pitad Gunai. Nayujate Sadat Mastaye. Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya.
Etad Ishanam Ishasya.
Etad Ishanam Ishasya.
Prakritisto Pitad Gunai.
Prakritisto Pitad Gunai.
Nayujate Sadat Mastaye.
Nayujate Sadat Mastaye.
Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya.
Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya. Nadishanam Ishasya. Prakritisto Pitad Gunai. Nayujate Sadat Mastaye. Yatha Buddhis Tadashraya. Etat, this, Ishanam, divinity, Ishasya, of the personality of Godhead, Prakritista, being in contact with material nature, Api, in spite of, Tat Gunai, by the qualities, Na, never, Yujate, is affected, Sada Atmastai, by those who are situated in eternity, Yata, as is, Buddhi, intelligence, Tat, the Lord, Ashraya, those who are under the shelter of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. This is the divinity of the personality of Godhead. He is not affected by the qualities of material nature, even though he is in contact with them. Similarly, the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord do not become influenced by the material qualities. Please repeat. This is the divinity, of the personality of God. He is not affected, by the qualities of material nature. Even though he is in contact with them. Similarly, the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord do not become influenced by material qualities. In the Vedas and Vedic literature, Shruti and Smriti, it is affirmed that in the divinity there is nothing material. He is transcendental, nirguna. He is transcendental, nirguna only. The supreme cognizant, Hari, or the personality of Godhead, is the supreme transcendental person situated beyond the range of material affection. These statements are also confirmed by Acharya Shankara. Swayam Upakatah Paham Vishwa Pahantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhakti Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Shari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I just stopped here in the purport. In the 88th chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, that there's a question by Parikshit Maharaj. He says that, why is it that if the Lord Krishna is the husband of the goddess of fortune, but his devotees are generally not so opulent. You can see that here and many places. But Lord Shiva, who is a renunciant, who's always practically wearing nothing, sitting under a tree, meditating all the time, but yet his followers have great opulence. So he said, this seems contradictory. And so, Shukadeva Swami explained that Lord Shiva is the controller of all the 16 lingas, otherwise the 16 different points of creation in this material world. And therefore, he can give anything material. And Krishna, he can give more. But Harirhi Janirnuga Paramam Purusha Prakriti Paramam, that he is, Lord Hari has no material qualities and has nothing to do with this material world, and he is beyond, transcendental. So therefore, he wants to bring his devotees to the greatest opulence, which is transcendent. So he doesn't want them to be distracted by material opulence. So only those devotees who are not distracted by material opulence will get real opulence in this world. And therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when he comments on that, and also Jiva Goswami, he said, a devotee should never think that because of their devotional service, they are getting material opulence to enjoy this world. It is only for serving Krishna. And only if they have that conviction will that opulence come. And if it comes by another means, it means that it is simply karma, and one should protect his karma by using it. Otherwise, one should eliminate his karma by using it carefully in the service of the Lord. And then real opulence will come. But it is the greatest illusion. It is the greatest illusion to think that by doing devotional service, now Krishna is rewarding me. Krishna doesn't reward people materially for something that's spiritual. As like Carla was saying yesterday, don't mix the spiritual with the material and think that it's interchangeable. Although ultimately everything comes from spirit. But even Lord Shiva, he comes from Vishnu. Just like the example is given that. Just like yogurt comes from milk, but you can't make milk from yogurt. So it takes transcendental vision to see how matter is actually coming from spirit. But only if we very carefully use every aspect of matter for spiritual purposes does it become spiritual. And actually, Srila Prabhupada said one time, there is nothing, the only thing that's really material is material consciousness. Because a person who has spiritual consciousness sees matter as a condensation of spirit, which is supposed to be used in a spiritual way, and therefore it becomes spiritual. Just like the famous classic example that I gave the other day for Prabhupada of the iron rod in the fire. So when we have matter in the fire of devotional service, then although it's still temporary by nature, it has become spiritual, its purpose has become spiritual. So the real understanding of matter is to understand it's Krishna's property. And it's like they have for children these building toys that are meant for education. And so it's like, this is like an educational material, so to speak. The whole material world is educational material for the living entities. So some of them use it wrong, and some, just like a child that's too young, will take the educational toy and beat it on the floor, or submerge it in water. It's because he's too young, he doesn't understand. So also, if we are spiritually immature, we'll use matter in the wrong way. And if we're spiritually mature, we use matter in the right way. And that's one point here. And Srila Prabhupada also mentions that Acharya Shankaracharya also confirmed Narayana Bhasyat, that Narayan is beyond this material nature. There's no question of Narayan having anything to do with material nature. So then Srila Prabhupada continues, one may argue that his relation with the goddess of fortune may be transcendental. But what about his relation with the Yadu dynasty, being born in that family, or killing the non-believers like Jarasandha and other asuras directly in contact with the modes of material nature? That's a good question. Okay, we accept that, goddess of fortune, she's transcendental, and Krishna's with her, or Vishnu, Narayan with the goddess of fortune, or Krishna with Radharani, or the queens of Dwarka in this case. They can be transcendental, but what about killing people? Krishna personally going and fighting with Jarasandha. Fighting is certainly not transcendental, but this is also an illusion. That Krishna, because he's supremely powerful, one of his opulences is strength. So how do you exhibit your strength? Strength is, we see that people exhibit their strength in this world by fighting. Where does that tendency come from? It comes from the Supreme. When he wants to exhibit his strength, why does he want to exhibit his strength? In Goloka Vrindavan, he exhibits his strength by making the other devotees stronger. He exhibits his predominance over others by being predominant. That's in Goloka Vrindavan. But in Vaikuntha, Krishna wants to demonstrate, he's seen as the most powerful, the most opulent, and therefore sometimes he comes to, but who is he going to fight with? Like Krishna wrestles with his friends in Goloka Vrindavan, but that's all play. But the relationship in Vaikuntha is a little more formal, so it's not like the Lord goes and wrestles with his devotees there, because they're serving him in opulence. They don't want to wrestle with him. They don't want to grab him. They don't want to feel superior to him in any way. They're servants. Only the goddess of fortune. And there are a few friends who Krishna has, but they're friends in reverence. Just like sometimes we have a friend, but we admire them very much because they have certain qualities that we don't have. So that's the type of friendship that exists in Vaikuntha. So Krishna picks his devotees, Jai Vijay, or Jambavan. Krishna fought with Jambavan when he came to exhibit his strength. So this fighting spirit, and then he does it because he promises, that Paritranaya Sadhanam Vinashaya Duskritam, that I will personally come to eliminate the Duskritas, or the impious person. So sometimes he even fights. Although generally, even in the battle of Kurukshetra, he didn't fight. He generally didn't fight. He killed a big demon, but that was just to liberate them, so it's actually his mercy. So his fighting spirit, whatever Krishna does, it's always the ultimate end, or the ultimate result is mercy. Mercy and compassion. So, now Srila Prabhupada explains, the answer is that the divinity of the personality of Godhead is never in contact with the qualities of material nature in any circumstances. So here we see the word, very important word, the qualities of material nature. Otherwise, we should very carefully study how Srila Prabhupada uses this wording in his purport. So, the qualities of material nature never touch him. Although he may be inside of material nature, but they never touch him. Just like Krishna says that Nachaiva Satvikas Bhava Rajasas Tamasaschaye Matta Evetitan Vidhi Natvaham Natvaham Teshu Te Mahi. That these three modes of material nature, they're actually coming from me. But I have nothing to do. Anyone who really knows and understands things, that although they are within me, I am not within them. And then he says later on in Bhagavad Gita, that later on in the 9th chapter, that idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matstani sagabhutani nachaham teshvavasitaha. That although the whole material nature is pervaded by my impersonal feature, in my personal feature, the living entities are within me, but I am not within them. So one may, wait a minute, what about Paramatma? But he's speaking from the point of view of Krishna. So from the point of view of Krishna, Krishna is not within all the living entities. He's within his devotees. But he's not within all living entities. He says about his devotees, and he says that later on in the same chapter, that Samoham Sarvabhuteshu Name Dveshustina Priyaha, that I don't favor anyone, nor am I against or unfavorable to anyone. But ye bhajanti tame bhakta. But whoever is my devotee, my tatesha chakyaham, I am within them and they are within me. So this is on the basis of loving relationship. Yes, Krishna is within them, they're within him. On the basis of being Brahman, or on the basis of being everything that exists, yes, everything is within Krishna. But in the form of Krishna, he's not within everything. And then he says, Nacha matstani bhutani. But at the same time, the living entities aren't within me. Now he's becoming more personal. Now, as Krishna, they may be within me as Brahman, but as Krishna, they're not within me. He wants to clarify that. Pashyame yogam aishwaram. Just see my yogic opulence. This is here later, and just in a few more lines. He says, he's Yogeshwar. So just see my opulence. You know, that Bhuta Brin, Naja Bhuta Sto. That although I maintain all the living entities, you know, how does he do it? Through his energies he does it. But they're not personally situated within me. Although Bhuta Bhavana, but all, because I'm the very source of creation, so you can say that everything's part of me. This is my yogic opulence. Everything's coming from me, but everything is not within me. Otherwise, Prabhupada gave the example that sometimes a very wealthy man, he may own, a wealthy person, they may own so many things, but they don't have to go personally to the factory. They have energies, so they have representatives that go to the factory and make sure everything is going on. So these are some of the classic examples of Srila Prabhupada. He's in contact with such qualities because he's the ultimate source of everything, yet he is above the actions of such qualities. Otherwise, they don't affect him. Their interaction doesn't affect him. He is known, therefore, as Yogeshwar, or master of mystic power, or in other words, the all-powerful. Even his learned devotees are not affected by the influence of the modes, of the material modes. The great 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan all came from greatly rich and aristocratic families. But when they adopted the life of mendicants at Vrindavan, superficially they appeared to be in wretched conditions of life. But factually, they were the richest of all in spiritual values. So, such Mahabhagavatas, or first-grade devotees, although moving amongst men, are not contaminated by honor or insult, hunger or satisfaction, by sleep or wakefulness, which are all resultant actions of the 3 modes of material nature. So this is, mentions the 6 Goswami, the Srinivasacharya. He says that although they came from Asheshala Mandala, Asheshala Mandalapati Shrenim. Shrenim means great circles of great personalities. Mandalapati means the controllers of society. They came from the families of controllers of society, but they gave it up as something insignificant, as Prabhupada uses the example of going to the bathroom. No one is overly attached to such things. No, they give it up. No. And then Bhukta Dina Ganesha Ka Karunaya Kaupina Kanta Shrito. And what did they do? Why did they give it up? Bhutva Dina. Those who are unfortunately situated in this material world, conditioned by material nature, Ishaka Karunaya, they wanted to show great compassion, and therefore they dressed in a simple loincloth with kanti mala and a simple chadar at the most. That's all they had. Sanatana Goswami arrived to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He had given up everything, his gold and everything. He gave it all up. And he arrived there as a renunciant. But someone had given him an opulent chadar. So he was sitting before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he noticed that Mahaprabhu was looking a little disdainfully at his chadar. He realized, oh, I'm a renunciant and I have this very opulent chadar. So he went to the marketplace and he saw an old beggar, and he said, I'll change my chadar for yours. First, the beggar was like, what? This is some kind of trick. Who's going to give a beautiful silk chadar for this old, tattered, cloth that I have? Okay. Changed. Then he came back and Mahaprabhu smiled. Now you've understood. So, of course, sometimes we have to use opulence even when we're in a renounced condition. But generally speaking, this is the example of the 6 Goswamis. And then Srila Prabhupada says here, this is very interesting. How does he describe them? They're not contaminated by honor or insult. This is Trinadapi Sunichenata Rodivasa. We should be so humble and so tolerant that if someone honors us, it doesn't affect us. Generally speaking, everyone loves to be honored and doesn't like so much to be insulted. So, but honor and insult should be the same. Happiness and distress in this world should be the same for a devotee. They're not interested in duality. So, and then he says, hunger or satisfaction, in either state. As Srila Prabhupada mentions in Bhagavad Gita and also in the Bhagavatam, that a brahmachari, if the spiritual master doesn't call him to come and eat, he thinks, oh, okay. That's of course, if one's not near the spiritual master, one might get very hungry. But anyway, representative of the spiritual master. Otherwise, he's not disturbed by hunger, and he's not disturbed by also being satisfied. Because being satisfied in this world is a disturbance for a pure devotee. Devotees don't want to be materially satisfied. Although material satisfaction may come, they're not attached to it. Just like Priyavrata. Priyavrata didn't want to be the emperor of the universe. But because Swayambhuva Manu was insisting on it, and then Lord Brahma, because Swayambhuva, Swayambhuva was thinking that Priyavrata is being instructed by Narada Muni. How can I compete with Narada Muni? Narada Muni is telling him to renounce his world. I want him to be the controller of the universe. No. We have trouble running a temple with few people in it. Like it's a big challenge. Imagine having to run the universe. Being in charge, you have to make sure everything is going well in the universe. So that's not an easy job. So, and then Narada Muni is saying, just meditate on the Supreme Lord and feel transcendental bliss. So meditate. So, but then Lord Brahma came and said, one should do one's duty and not be attached to being satisfied or dissatisfied. So then he understood and he accepted. So as being king, he had to accept material opulence. Prahlad Maharaj also, he begged Lord Nrsimhadev, just allow me to serve your devotees. Just allow me to always be associated with your devotees so that I could maintain my purity. Because he was thinking, I was a demon. And somehow or another, by your mercy, I have become a devotee. So let me always be in the company of your devotees so that I can always remain purified. But then Lord Nrsimhadev said, no, you're not asking for enough. I'm going to give you a kingdom, and you're going to enjoy, whether you like it or not. Now, if anyone said that to us, they'd say, hey, okay, fine with me, bring it on. But Prahlad Maharaj was not. He was thinking, well, okay, I'll have to enjoy this world. Or Kardama Muni, he was living under a tree with his wife Devahuti. But then he saw it, and he was perfectly satisfied by just whatever happened. But then Devahuti was getting, she was a beautiful princess. And then all of a sudden she's getting thin, her skin's getting wrinkled, and her face is, but she was so pure that she didn't want to ask for anything. But then she thought, my husband said that he will leave me, and he's a renunciant. He should leave me. Why does he want to be with me? No, and so she thought, but in order to leave me, he has to have a son. But in order to have a son, he's not going to be attracted to unite with me if I'm like this. So then she had a desire, and Kardama Muni understood her desire, and he said, all right, I guess we have to live in opulence. So he created this mystical palace servants and everything, and he had to live there also. But he remained renounced. Or Sudam Brahman, he remained renounced even though he had palatial buildings, lakes and rivers all belonging to him. But he remained perfectly renounced. So this is being free from hunger and satisfaction by sleep or wakefulness. We're not disturbed by these things. We have to sleep, we accept it. And wakefulness, we're not disturbed. Some people are very disturbed by wakefulness. They want to sleep 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. They're very disturbed by wakefulness. And all these things are the resultant actions of the three modes of nature. So otherwise Krishna is not affected by these things, and his devotee is not affected by these things. The devotee is never affected by the three modes of nature, although he lives within them. Now here comes something a little more difficult to understand. Similarly, some of them are engaged in worldly dealings, yet are unaffected. I just gave some examples. Unless these neutralities of life are there, one cannot be considered situated in transcendence. Otherwise, to be considered that one is situated in transcendence is not something that you self-label yourself. Oh yeah, I'm a devotee. I come to the temple, I have Kantimala, I have Tilak, I have this, or if you're in Krishna West, you may not have those things, but you may have other things. So, not by the external trappings, or not by activities that I may perform for Krishna, although these are beneficial for spiritual advancement. They don't necessarily situate you in transcendence unless you're free from the duality. You're still not, so you may be situated in transcendence in the sense of obeying the orders of the spiritual master or the representative. You may be situated in some degree of transcendence, but you're not perfectly situated in transcendence until you transcend these dualities. So that's the point that Srila Prabhupada is making here. Now here comes something a little more difficult to understand. The divinity and his associates. Srila Prabhupada is calling Krishna the divinity. And his associates are on the same transcendental plane, and their glories are always sanctified by the action of Yoga Maya, or the internal potency of the Lord. The devotees are always transcendental, even if they are sometimes found to have fallen in their behavior. The Lord emphatically declares in Bhagavad Gita 9:30 that even if an unalloyed devotee is found to be fallen due to a previous material contamination, he is nevertheless to be accepted as fully transcendental because of his being engaged cent per cent in the devotional service of the Lord. That's a little difficult to understand. An unalloyed devotee, meaning someone who is perfectly 100% situated in transcendence, may be found to be in a fallen condition. Now, what does that mean? Well, then again, Prabhupada gives as an example Jaya and Vijaya, although he says very clearly that their fall down is not like an ordinary fall down. But sometimes a devotee may have come to perfection, may have actually achieved perfection, but there's some remnants from the previous activity which may affect them. And it may, just like in the Upadeshamrita, that Goswami says that even though the Ganga may have foam on it, it's still the Ganga. So, and even though a devotee may have remnants, like some people, their disposition, even sometimes we find that very purified devotees, their disposition may be a little, difficult to deal with. They may be a little harsh, or they may be a little, but if they're cent percent, this is a very important thing, cent percent, 100%. If they are 100% engaged in devotional service and free in that devotional service, they are free from the influence of the modes of nature. But there's some little interference that may have happened we should not judge them. Sadhu Deva Samantavya, Krishna says, we consider them to be saints, even though there may have been some slip. The Lord protects him always because of his rendering service unto him, and the following conditions are to be considered accidental and temporary. They will vanish in no time. So, this is Srila Prabhupada's purport. Now, this doesn't justify what we just read. It doesn't justify that we willingly participate in activities that are not favorable for devotional service, but sometimes due to the influence. It's like we see, especially those who are engaged 100% in devotional service by the mercy of other devotees, meaning that someone takes shelter of a temple or takes shelter of devotional service, or puts deities in their home, and they're trying to follow all the instructions of the Bhagavatam, right? As Srila Prabhupada, as our acharyas explain them. They're following the instructions of their spiritual master, and especially even when living in the temple. If you're living in a temple, it's assumed that you're engaged 24 hours a day in devotional service. So, but there may be remnants. There usually are remnants of past desires, attachments, and those things will affect the devotee. But as long as they remain 100%, Krishna will protect them. So this is very specifically what Srila Prabhupada is speaking about here. That in this transitional stage, in this anartha nivritti stage, where you're giving up the unwanted desires, but sometimes the effects of past lifetime may be there. One has to tolerate those effects and continue the devotional service. And of course it says later on in the 11th canto, 20th chapter, one of my favorite pairs of verses, 27, 28, it says that even though a devotee must, if they have faith in me, they must understand that all material activities will lead to misery. But even though they understand that, sometimes there may be the desire to enjoy this world. Now, we're talking here about, grihastha life type enjoyment, but maybe something else, but basically speaking that. But every time they enjoy, they again remember that the deleterious effects of material nature are very dangerous, and therefore they regret. Why did I do that? At least that much should be there. Why did I do that? That was foolish. Oh, Krishna, help me overcome this. Not like, that's okay, no problem. Then if we have that attitude, no problem. If there's no remorse. But of course, it's mentioned in the purport of those verses that one should not be so remorseful that one becomes disillusioned and wants to just give up devotional service, becoming hopeless. There should be a little bit of regret, at least. And of course, there may be a lot of regret if one is actually advanced and having tasted the service of Krishna and feeling that somehow or another I've strayed from that devotional service. So there may be a great degree of regret. But there should not be so much regret that one becomes disappointed, or one just feels so hopeless that I don't want to continue serving Krishna. One should never become that dismayed. So these are all very important points. And the main point in this verse is that the Lord and His devotees are always above material nature, but the devotees will appear to be more situated in material nature because Krishna is, killing demons, performing miracles, jumping off a mountain that's 88 yojanas high. We can't do that. We can't even jump off a cliff that's 50 feet high, not to speak of 88 yojanas. And Krishna can lift up Govardhan. Obviously, He's transcendental. He can marry as we read yesterday in the purport, He can marry 16,108 wives. We can't do that. someone would try, but they probably wouldn't get beyond 2, and then they would end up with none. No. Few devotees have tried that in the past in our ISKCON movement, because that was the original system, and it didn't work. In almost every case, it didn't work. Very difficult. So, the point is that a devotee, it may be more difficult to see because they have a material body. Krishna doesn't have a material body. Krishna has a spiritual body. His body is all, he says, Prakritim Stam Adhishtaya, that my body is always beyond the modes of material nature. It's always beyond the effects of it. But a devotee takes a material body, except for certain associates of Krishna. They also come to this world with a spiritual body, like the gopis of Vrindavan. They don't, when they descend with Krishna, they don't descend in a material body and then somebody has to bury them or cremate them. They actually come in their spiritual bodies and they leave. Even sometimes a material body becomes spiritualized, like Dhruva Maharaj. He left in his very self-same body, which became spiritual. That Krishna can do. He's the supreme mystic, as we just read. But generally speaking, we have a material body, so there are symptoms of a material body. We get sick, we have to eat, we have to go to the bathroom, we have to do all these external things. We have to keep warm, we have to keep cool. And so, the material body is of the pure devotee sometimes can be bewildering for one who doesn't understand that the pure devotee accepts the material body in order to teach others how to have a material body and still remain Krishna conscious. Otherwise, there's no reason for someone who descends from the spiritual world to accept the material body. And of course, the other reason is that sometimes by being in the material atmosphere, a devotee increases their dependence and the strength, the intensity of their love for Krishna, because Krishna is always helping them navigate matter, to navigate this material world. So these are some thoughts on this verse. I'll stop here. Any questions, any comments? Yeah. Oh, one thing, at one point, I just remembered before we do that, I wanted to emphasize this point, that when I was reading the verse, it just occurred to me. I just thought of it. Here it says, Yata Buddhis tad ashraya. Buddhis, intelligence. So, we don't see intelligence translated in the verse. So what does this Buddhis mean? It means that although a devotee has a material body and has to undergo these interactions, his intelligence is so purified that his intelligence never becomes bewildered by the modes of material nature. I wanted to make that point. And therefore, it says Yata Buddhis. That is spiritual intelligence. And what is that spiritual intelligence? Tesham satati yuktanam bhajitam purvakam dhami buddhi yogam tam yenamam vayam. That the devotee, when they're fully dedicated to devotional service and with love, with loving devotion, then Krishna gives them the intelligence, to come out of material nature. In other words, he gives spiritual intelligence. He keeps that. So that's the type of buddhi that we're speaking about here. Remember that point. I just glanced up and saw the buddhis again.
Thank you for the class. My thought was that sometimes our whole standard that we're trying to attain here within Krishna consciousness can be difficult. We see devotees sometimes maybe they make a mistake or they can't uphold that standard. Instead of really revealing their heart to other devotees, they sort of feel guilt and drift away. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then on our side, we try everything possible and kind of reel them back in, and it's basically difficult. I mean, I guess we should always keep a hand open, but how do we prevent these having difficulties with this.
One has to inspire confidence. It's very difficult to reveal one's mind or to reveal one's heart. And therefore, generally it takes some time that someone will have that degree of faith or confidence. Just like even relating to Krishna, sometimes when something bad happens in our, we consider bad, although it's definitely not bad probably. And we think, why is Krishna doing it? We even question Krishna. Otherwise, we don't have that full confidence. Whatever's happening to me, it's Krishna's mercy. So if we can do that with Krishna, how much more can we do it with someone who's also a conditioned soul who may be a little bit more advanced than me? And it's not so easy. So we have to establish that confidence by our own actions, by our own attitude. Attitude is a very important thing. By compassion and tolerance. Compassion and tolerance, reeling people in doesn't mean we reel them into the ashram. The ashram is for serious people who want to practice seriously. It's not like, a place where you can just tolerate all kinds of bad habits. Otherwise, and that's why I explained to you the other day that Srila Prabhupada wrote this famous letter in 1972, and he said, don't be very anxious for people to live in the ashram. First, let them come and hear Bhagavad Gita, because we have to have Bhagavad Gita class so they can come and hear it. And let them come and hear Bhagavad Gita. And then when they develop a taste for austerity, then they can come. Otherwise, they may go away embittered or frustrated. So, we have to make sure that we're, as Srila Prabhupada said, you have to provide the transcendental goods. He was speaking to one leader. He said, you must supply the transcendental goods. It means otherwise you have to create the atmosphere, both in the temple and in one's own person, that inspires people so that they will have that confidence. So that's not an easy thing to do. And then people have their false ego. So even though one may be compassionate and tolerant, one's false ego may not allow them to reveal their mind. Because they think, well, if I say this, what will they think of me? What will this person think of me? And that's false ego. And we all have false ego, so it's difficult for us to reveal our mind. Difficult to say, yeah, I did this, I did that. Because we like people to think, oh, he's very nice or she's very nice. It's natural. It's a natural psychological conditioning. Whereas we see our acharyas just the opposite. Our acharyas teach us how we should think, not in a self-deprecating way, not in a way that we, lose our self-esteem. Self-esteem is based on the soul, not on the body. But when one is conditioned, there has to be a certain amount of self-esteem to be psychologically healthy. One has to hear sometimes, thank you very much, wonderful what you did. Of course, too much of that will just feed the false ego. But because we're psychologically conditioned, we can't just imitate Bhaktivinoda Thakur and say, I'm wallowing in the muck of material existence, I'm the most miserable, I'm the most then one loses one's self-esteem. But the real self-esteem is understanding that I am the eternal servant of Krishna, a pure spirit soul. What can be a greater, it's definitely greater than any false ego, evaluation of oneself in this world. But our psychological condition has to be satisfied. Srila Prabhupada says that again and again. That's the whole purpose of Varnashram. In Varnashram, I become satisfied as a Brahmin because I'm doing certain things. I become satisfied as a Vaishya because I'm doing Vaishya activities. I become satisfied as a Kshatriya by doing Kshatriya activities. So these things are, they're built into the Varnashram system. And then one, at the same time, is hearing about transcendence and is aspiring for transcendence. So what can we do to reel them in? No. Mahatma Prabhu told me once, what do? Good kirtan, good prasad, good atmosphere. He said 5 or 6 things, I can't remember them all. Good association. And he said something else, I can't remember. We have to, otherwise, we have to make it very attractive that people want to come. Like we were talking yesterday, have different things, variety of things like you're saying, have different events. Make it very attractive to come and be part of our Krishna consciousness. And then understand that there are some people, no matter what you do, it's just that their conditioning from past life, their karma, they're going to have things happen to them. They're going to have very intense material desires that pop up even after they start practicing devotional service. Because whenever you start to practice devotional service, then Maya will start testing you. She'll bring out all these things. So Prabhupada gave the example just like cleaning a room. When you start cleaning it, then all the dust comes up in the air, so it seems worse than it was before. But before I was breathing nicely, not choking on the dust, which previously I didn't see because it was on the floor. So in the same way, when we start cleaning our hearts, then things come out. And some desires that, I thought I had overcome that. But there it is, and it's torturing me, And some people, it's so intense that they have to go away, or they may, like it says here, they may have moments of, where some people go away. I've seen people go away for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, and come back. And some people go away, but they'll come back in a future life. Because every small amount of service that we do is eternal benefit. But it may not manifest immediate benefit because we commit offenses, because of karma, and we don't become sufficiently purified, and we commit offenses, and then the root of our present devotional service, it becomes uprooted, and it has to again take place in another time. Therefore, we have to be careful about offenses. So all these things are considerations, and therefore, Goswami says, pure devotional service is not an easy thing, because we have false ego, we have conditioning, we have karma, we have all these things that are blending in, and Maya herself testing us. You say you want to surrender to Krishna, you say you want to love Krishna, so I'm going to show you how much you really want that. I'm going to test you and show you. So some people are just going to be carried away by Maya, and there's nothing you can do. The only thing you can do, keep in touch with them, bring them or send them a little prasadam, give them a call every once in a while, say, well, I really miss you, and then that affection, you don't do it mechanically, you have to feel it within your heart, you have to feel the compassion, and then that feeling, Paramatma is here, Paramatma is there, they will feel that compassion. And that's what we can do to reel them in. But if you just do it officially, let me see, I'm supposed to call everybody every Tuesday and tell them that I miss them, but actually they're really a nuisance and I prefer that they're not around. So if that's our consciousness, then Paramatma will tell them, don't go. But if they feel there's real compassion and love coming from our heart, please, come back. We really miss you. And then you may think, well, even though he does this and that, but still, we really miss you because you're a devotee, because you're trying to give your life to Krishna to some degree. And that's what it means to have compassion. Compassion means that our desire to bring someone to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is greater than any personal consideration. And when we feel that way, then it's easier to reel people back in. It's not an easy thing. And the main thing comes from us, not from them. We have to be really prepared to feel that and feel that sense of duty and obligation to Mahaprabhu and his desire that everyone take shelter of his lotus feet.
Yeah, in us, myself, it creates a lot of kind of frustration or pain, sadness, and see people laying there just wasting away time when they can be being so one of things. So there's a sense of meditation or all these other things. For the reason, but they creep into that meditation. What can I do? And there's a part we can be compassionate. There's that other part like you said where we just have to pray to Krishna.
Yeah.
Back to finding that proper balance by realizing, okay, I've done what I can do. Now I can just kind of pray for people.
Pray all up.
Well, I mean, when you call,
you don't have to call every day. You can call once a month. Say.
Right.
And if they don't want to hear from you, they just won't answer. They'll block you or something, And then you just wait till they unblock you, or you may be blocked for the whole lifetime.
Unfriended.
Or somebody that knows them. Say, can you take a little Mahaprasad to so and so?
Yeah.
Just it takes 20 seconds. Give this Maha when you see them. Yeah. So that's the way we try to help others.
Well, I have a question, and then I have a comment/question based off of that line of thought. I noticed from hearing a lot of people's stories about how they discovered the ashram and things like that, or how they discovered Krishna consciousness and what for, that it's usually when they've had something happen in their lives that's considered like a material tragedy, addiction or loss of a home or things like that, when they're going through some sort of material trouble. And I think that when there's something like that, and then when you're drawn to devotion, there's this eagerness to please. You want to please Krishna. You want to, show that devotion. And when sometimes an ashram or even a temple or a church or anything like that can be a totally new and unusual experience for a lot of people. And so a lot of people, like you said, the self-esteem comes from the spirit. Well, their spirit is very weak. At some points, or at least they feel that their spirit's very weak. And it's in this shell of mine where they feel so rattled. And, they're so self-conscious that a simple comment can make them feel judged and horrified and like, oh my gosh, I walked in here with my shoes on, and so I've offended everybody, and I should just hide my face and not come back. And I think that in my mind that could be part of it. And I was wondering, in your opinion, if that's the line of thinking, if it's because I noticed there seems to be a certain level of emotional vulnerability that a lot of people seem to have in Krishna consciousness, because a lot of the stories that I hear are similar to the stories that I heard from people when they were going to, I hate to make this comparison, but going to AA, when I was living in a homeless shelter. The people who were in the homeless shelter that were going to AA or struggling with drug addiction, their stories are almost exactly the same as the stories of people when they basically have that divine moment. So that's part one, related to people leaving and not coming back because they broke a rule, or they feel like they broke a rule.
There's an example that Srila Prabhupada gave when he first went to see his spiritual master. He sat down on the same level as Bhakti, and that's you're not supposed to do that. You're never supposed to sit higher than a superior. But Prabhupada really didn't understand that, But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur didn't say anything to Prabhupada. But then there was another man who would come many times. He was a very wealthy man. And he said, Baba, don't think that because you're wealthy you can buy me. And the man understood. He sat down and Prabhupada looked and then he understood that, I shouldn't be sitting like this. But then he said, next time I came, I sat down. So you always have to be sensitive to the newer people, that they may not understand things and not try to impose rules and regulations on them. But as Prabhupada said, and of course not only Prabhupada said, but the Padma Purana says, and Rupa Goswami says, first get a taste for chanting. First become happy by chanting Hare Krishna, then they can understand the rules and regulations. Of course there are certain things that we have to say it in such a way that people don't feel like they're doing something wrong. Any normal person who's not hypersensitive can understand if they walk in with the shoes and say, excuse me, we don't use shoes here, and then you explain why. Because, shoes, they're picking up so many things from the street, and therefore, and then, so it's a duty of persons who live in a church or temple or whatever, to explain things in such a way that people understand it. And it's not just some ritual that, I didn't. Because if you're so hypersensitive, that if somebody very gently, with a nice explanation, everything corrects you, even after you've done it several times, and tries to do it in the nicest way, and you're so hypersensitive that it bothers you, then there's probably many other things that will bother you also. Yes, that's a good point.
The second part of my question was, you were talking about how, I'm not going to summarize this correctly, but, there is a difference between, and I'm going to put this in basically very, very layman's terms, but there was a very strong difference between, the average Joe on the street and a devotee of Krishna. When it comes to practices and what's within them and their relation to, I call it God, Spirit, etc. But just to summarize and make it easier for people who aren't necessarily within that path to kind of relate to. But I was wondering, you said that a phrase that said something like that Krishna does not necessarily, can't quote it, right? But Krishna does not necessarily come down to us and the devotees are called upon. But I was wondering if there are those moments of, basically receiving your calling, because once again, there's stories of kind of miraculous events happening at just the right time in a person's life, obviously, and with Krishna just literally going down the road at just the right time in your life. And I was wondering if there were those moments of people being called to do the service.
That's part of it's our karma, and another part is the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That because Krishna is situated in the heart of everyone, he knows when someone is, there's sufficient frustration, sufficient dissatisfaction with the material atmosphere, with the many lifetimes that I've passed in this material world. So Krishna arranges that someone can come in contact. Because everything, all the collective activities that are going on are all being arranged by the demigod, but through karma. But the spiritual intervention is being arranged by Krishna and his energy. his devotees. So Krishna engages his devotees also to be the instrument by which that happens. Not just necessarily some dream, although that also happens. Some dream, there's no involved. A major impact is Krishna likes to do it with devotees because Krishna likes devotees to take credit. He would rather have the devotee take credit than himself. Just like Arjuna. He wanted to be the chariot driver so that Arjuna could be the hero. Although Krishna could have, in 2 seconds, defeated all the soldiers on the battlefield. But he wanted Arjuna to take the credit and the Pandavas to take the credit. So therefore Krishna sends his devotees. And like you say, they may cross the street. Or someone, they may be chanting in the street, and Krishna will guide someone who's just at that point where when they hear the chanting, they'll come and it just immediately makes such an impact that they want to, immediately want to change their lives or become connected. And 150 other people passing by, it's just like, what is that noise? No. But they still get some benefit, although it may manifest in the future. No. So everything is, therefore, Krishna says that everything is arranged. There's no Prabhupada would say many times, there's no accidents, there's no chance, there's no good luck. No. There's good fortune, but no good luck. No. And we all have good fortune if we have the ability to perceive it.